The earliest people of the ancient Americas appeared on the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, where the Olmecs, meaning the rubber people, that centered around the sites at San Lorenzo La Venta. The Olmecs built empires, pyramids, and altar stone sculptures, including tombs for rulers. Maize was the staple food of the region for the Olmecs. Olmec people also traded with other regions of Mesoamerica. The Olmecs traded small works of art made from jade, basalt, or ceramics in exchange for foreign imports. The Olmecs built pyramids and maintained a calendar based on one invented from the Olmec priests. From 300 BCE to 1100 AD. The earliest heirs of the Olmecs were the Mayans, who created a remarkable society in the region by southern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. Mayans spread their influence partially by military force. The Tikal was an important Mayan political center. Chichen Itza in northern Yucatan Peninsula was established for a larger political framework in Mayan society. The Mayans harvested maize and cotton, which is highly prized in their society. Mayans also traded exotic and luxurious goods like rare animal skins, cocoa beans, and fine-crafted works of art. The Mayan society was known for math, astronomy, and a sophisticated written language. Their religion. The Mayans constructed the most elaborate calendar of the ancient Americans. Mayan priests also thought that gods kept the world going and maintained agricultural cycles in exchange for honors and sacrifices performed by human beings. The most important of these sacrifices included the shedding of human blood, which Mayans believed it will bring rain to their crops of maize. They also sacrificed the victims by decapitation to the gods. Mayans also invented a ball game from the Olmecs. Teotihuacan was a large agricultural village by 500 BCE. Its Pyramids of the Sun was the largest structure in Mesoamerica. It was a huge, thriving metropolis with scores of temples, several palatial villages, busy markets, and hundreds of workshops for artisans and craftsmen. Most professional merchants in Teotihuacan traded their products through Mesoamerica. Paintings and murals suggest that Teotihuacan was a theocracy of arts of sorts. They played a ball game adapted from the Olmec calendar to their own, and expanded the Olmec's graphic symbols into a complete system of. The heartland of the early Andean society was the region newly occupied by the states of Peru and Bolivia. In the Andean society, agricultural products and technologies were passed from one place to others. They also cultivated cotton and had a rich supplementary agricultural harvests. During the Chavín cult, Andean society became the increasingly complex, which enjoyed enormous popularity during the 900s to 80. The Aboriginal people of Australia maintained hunting and gathering societies with no central power and no form of government. Agriculture brought population growth and specialization of labor. Austronesian-speaking people possessed sophisticated maritime technology and established human settlement in the islands of the From 1253 to 1324, Marco Polo was a Venetian merchant and traveler whose extensive travels show how Europe and Asia were linked. In his accounts of his travels, Marco Polo reported that Kublai Khan, a Mongol ruler, appointed him governor of Yangzhou. Marco Polo's stories of his travels, reports of all the goods he had seen, made European merchants want to be part of the trade networks of Eurasia. There was also the best-known Muslim traders, such as Ibn Battuta from 1304 through 1364, a Moroccan legal scholar who studied Islamic law, made pilgrimage to Mecca. Long-distance travels of all kinds encouraged cultural exchange between people of different societies. They also enabled Muslim travelers to introduce new food and commercial crops to other regions. Large numbers of travelers also facilitated agricultural and technological diffusion, and sometimes facilitated long-distance trade. Islamic values spread not only through efforts of legal scholars but also through the missionary activities of Sufi mystics. Sufis ventured to recently conquered or converted lands and sought to win a popular following for the faith in India, Southeast Asia, and Sub-Saharan Africa. Sufis emphasized piety and devotion to Allah. Meanwhile, Roman Catholic missionaries also traveled long distances spreading Christianity. Missionaries accompanied the Crusaders and other forces to all the lands where Europeans extended their influence and values. The most ambitious missions sought to convert Mongols and Chinese to Roman Catholic Christianity. Most active of the Roman Catholic missionaries in China was John of Montesquieu, an Italian Franciscan, worked energetically to establish Christianity in the host society. However, John of Montesquieu won few converts and missions successfully established in Scandinavia, Eastern Europe, Spain, and Mediterranean. In China, the Ming dynasty was established by Han Wu to restore peace in China again, relying on mandarins, a special class of powerful officials sent out to ensure local officials implementing. During the 1950s, the bubonic plague disrupted societies and economies throughout Eurasian and North African regions. Mongol merchants and other travelers helped spread the disease along trade routes, which brought a decline in population, killing the young, the weak, peasants, laborers, artisans, and crafts workers, merchants, and priests all fell for the plague. In Western Europe, the bubonic plague brought many challenges that the political authorities rose wages and forbid workers to leave their homes. However, by the 15th century, Italy, Spain, France, and England had devised techniques of government that vastly enhanced. Italian states needed large numbers of officials to administer their complex affairs. The kings of France and England began to levy taxes and assemble powerful armies, and in Spain, the marriage in 1484 of Fernando of Aragon and Isabel of Castile united two wealthy Iberian realms. Later, the recovery in Western Europe came during the Renaissance, where the rebirth of art and architecture were beginning to be used. Two examples are Michel and Leonardo da Vinci for their paintings and Brunelleschi for his large dome architecture. And the humanist was created which referred to scholars interested in the humanities, literature, history, and moral philosophy. Later, expeditions began to occur for more interactions and trading posts around the world. Chapter 23. In 1415, Prince Henry of Portugal conquered Moroccan part of Ceuta and sponsored voyages down West African coast. In 1497, Vasco da Gama departed Lisbon with a fleet of four-armed merchant ships for India, but turned into an unpleasant voyage. Yet his cargo of pepper and cinnamon was highly profitable, and Portuguese organized further expeditions. In 1451 through 1506, Christopher Columbus, a Spanish navigator, proposed to sail to the markets of Asia through a western route. Really never reaching Asia, he obtained very little gold in the Caribbean. This created western and eastern links for other European states. In 1480 through 1521, there was also Ferdinand Magellan and his crew, who were the first ones to run a navigation around the world. And lastly, in 1728 through 1774, Captain James Cook led 3 expeditions to the Pacific, charting eastern Australia and New Zealand, adding Hawaii and New Caledonia for European. The creation of new ships and sails, navigational instruments, and the knowledge of winds and currents made it faster and easier to sell to other regions. European sailors learned to construct ships strong enough to brave most adverse conditions. Most important navigational equipment on board these vessels and ships were magnetic compasses, an invention which the Chinese during the Song and Tang dynasty invented. There was also the astrolabe, an instrument to determine latitude by measuring the angle of the sun or pole star above. Equipped with advanced technology, European mariners ventured throughout the ocean and gradually compiled a body of practical knowledge about winds and currents that determined navigational possibilities in the age of sailing. Portuguese developed a strategy called Volta de Mar that enabled them to sail from Canaries to Portugal instead of trying to force their way against the trade winds. They sailed northwest until alongside new technologies, the goal of expanding boundaries of Christianity also drove Europeans into a larger world. Christianity was a missionary religion, urged to spread faith throughout the world. Europeans launched crusades and holy wars against Muslims in Iberia in order to recover the Holy. Also, English and Dutch merchants formed two especially powerful joint stock companies, the English East India Company in 1600 and its Dutch counterpart, the United East India Company. The Columbian Exchange was a global diffusion of plants, food crops, animals, and human populations, and also diseases that took place after the voyages of Christopher Columbus and other European mariners. Lastly, besides stimulating commerce in the Eastern Hemisphere, the voyages of European merchants, mariners, and also encouraged the emergence of a genuinely global trading system where Europeans not only established in the Caribbean and Americas, but instead trade networks extended to all corners of the Atlantic Ocean basin. This is called the transoceanic trade. Chapter 27. When the Yuan dynasty collapsed, the Ming dynasty restored native rule back to China. Hung Wu, founder of the Ming, the brilliant dynasty, as emperor he made extensive use of mandarins and also placed great trust in eunuchs. Later, Emperor Yongle launched series of naval expeditions to maintain a tight centralized state. Ming emperors sought to protect their realm by new fortifications, including the Great Wall of China along the northern border. The vigor Ming Empire did not survive until the mid-16th century due to pirates invading, having a weak military, and peasant revolts in When the Ming dynasty fell, the Manchus from the homeland Manchuria proclaimed a new dynasty called the Qing dynasty, which ruled China from 1644 to 1919. Ganji, a Confucian scholar, conqueror, as well as an enlightened ruler, oversaw construction of a vast Qing empire by conquering Taiwan. Later, Xiaolong's reign matured height of the Qing dynasty. Throughout the reign of Xianglong, China remained a wealthy and well-organized land. China was predominantly an agricultural American food crops. Spanish merchants coming by the way of the Philippines introduced American food crops to China, which included maize, sweet potatoes, peas, and nuts. The introduction of new crops increased the food supply and supported further population. Foreign trade. Global trade brought tremendous prosperity to China, especially during the Qing dynasty. Chinese workers produced vast quantities of silk, porcelain, and tea for consumers in the Indian Ocean basin, Central Asia, Europe. However, the Qing government withdrew its support to expensive maritime trading, limiting the activities of foreign merchants, including the Dutch book. Technology. By the early Ming dynasty, technological innovation had slowed. Imperial armed forces adopted European cannons and advanced firearms for their own uses. This borrowing gunpowder technology originated in China, and that Europeans had refined and improved, but little innovation and improved the technology. Little innovation in agricultural and industrial technologies occurred during the Ming and Qing dynasty. The basic and the most highly valued unit of the Chinese society was family. Children were loyal to their fathers, and subjects were to honor the emperor. It was considered an important function of the clan. As far as gender relations, there was a strict patriarchal control over all females. Boys were preferred over girls because they were the ones who were to pass down the bloodline. Female infanticide was not uncommon, and widows were encouraged to commit suicide. Foot binding in young girls became increasingly common, and the lowest status person in the family was a young. Popular culture and novels. Confucian scholars looked down on popular novels as crude fiction that had little to do with the realities of the world. Many of them had involved subjects like tales of conflict, horror, wonder, excitement, which all appealed to readers. Examples of these are novels that were called The Romance of the Three Kingdoms and The Dream of the Confucian education. In order to promote Confucian values, the Ming and Qing emperors supported educational programs at several levels. They funded the Harlan Academy a research institute for Confucian scholars in Beijing, and maintained provincial schools throughout China. When promising students could study for civil service exams, the exams themselves encouraged the civilization of Confucian values, since they focused on Confucian texts and Neo-Confucian comments. Matteo Ricci. The most prominent of the missionaries were the Jesuits, who worked to strengthen Roman Catholic Christianity in Europe and spread their faith abroad. And the Jesuit Italian Matteo Ricci, who had the ambitious goal of converting China to Christianity. It was a brilliant and learned to become a man of popular figure in the Ming court. Confucianism and Christianity. The Jesuits sought to capture Chinese interests with European science and technology, but ultimately goal was always to win converts. In spite of their tolerance, flexibility, and non-genuine respect for their hosts, Chinese people preferred Confucianism. Therefore, the Jesuits attracted few converts. The end of the Jesuit mission. Ultimately, the Roman Catholic mission in China came to an end because of the squabbles between the Jesuits and members of the Franciscan and Dominican orders. The Roman Catholic mission to China did not attract large numbers of Chinese converts, but nonetheless had important. The Tokugawa dynasty commenced in 1867. The shogun ruled Japan and the peasants received political rights and large estates in exchange for military services. Tokugawa Ieyasu established a military government known as Tokugawa Bakufu, or a tent government. The principal aim of the Tokugawa shoguns was to stabilize their realm and movement of the return of the Civil War. Neo-Confucianism provided a respectable ideological underpinning for the Bakufu. By the early 18th century, Neo-Confucianism had become the official ideology of Tokugawa Bakufu. Christian missionaries and European merchants contributed their own distinctive cultural fabrics to the Tokugawa Japan. However, anti-Christian campaigns were created in order to halt Christian missions and commanding Japanese Christians to renounce their faith. Christianity only